Hello everyone, thanks for joining in. We're going to talk about presentation skills. This is one of the harder things to do in communication, how to present in front of people and how to feel successful as you're doing it. A lot of people get stage fright, and I'm sure you already watched the TED Talk video that was very helpful in this module. If you haven't, be sure that you do. It's pretty intriguing with the science behind getting scared to talk in front of people, and sometimes that's okay. I honestly used to suffer from stage fright a bit, but over time I've gotten a lot better at doing what I can to have better communication skills when I present in front of people. You can watch this video on public speaking. If you pull up the PowerPoint, it's available for you to take a look at. It offers some good information about how to present yourself in a way that comes across as a professional. So the role of communication in public speaking, of course, is a variety of different things which you can look and read here. Depending on your audience, you might change how you're going to communicate in front of a large group of people, but I would say the majority of people that do this have a lot of practice and have worked hard at becoming effective public speakers. A lot of other people that try it off the cuff and don't practice sometimes I think suffer from more worrying and doubt. So what I'm trying to say is the more you practice, the more effective you'll be at public speaking. And a lot of it is trial and error, so getting up in front of people and convincing that yourself that you're able to do it and that you're able to be effective. A lot of different forms of communicating in front of people, right? Goes over some of those. And we're not going to get into too much detail because you're already aware of this based on prior chapters. All these things can be, they can be negative or positive in nonverbal communication. As you can tell, if you look at the picture here, it seems as the person is being a little aggressive, right? So, the way you set yourself, your posture, your facial expressions, your eye contact with people can be perceived as negative or positive depending on your situation. Let's talk a little bit about posture. A lot of people, when they're speaking in front of people, sometimes they don't realize they're doing it, but they cross their arms. Crossing your arms can mean, in the majority of cultures, that you're kind of tired of the conversation, you're annoyed with the person that you're speaking to, you just really don't want to be there. So, small things like that that can take effect and can prove to be negative in front of other people, and then in the long run really ruin your ability to communicate effectively with them. Speech qualities are always important. We talked about this: volume, pitch, tone, tempo, how fast you speak, how you enunciate your words. I'm not going to really get into too much detail, but I'm from, Alabama, southern states, and the way they enunciate, of course, is a lot different than the way people speak up here. So making sure you're able to fulfill the need of your group that you're with and speak to a point where they'll understand it. Pronunciation, of course, is different than enunciation, right? It's the sound the speaker gives to letters or combinations. All right, introducing a speaker. Please, 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 you see this quite often, use a brief introduction rather than a long drawn-out thing, because at times this can be a negative attribute to the speaker coming forward. So you want to give the speaker the attention that they need in order to provide an effective process or whatever they're reviewing. And then for your presentation, after you're introduced, you want to be sure to analyze your audience, develop a speech, have the content ready to go. A lot of people have note cards that they bring for a speech. Have some humor in there, make sure it's clear with what you're talking about, and then also in regards to how you're presenting, make sure that it's enjoyable for the audience and it's not something that's boring and drawn out. When you analyze the audience, of course, you're going to look at what's the occasion, why are you there? Make sure you have respect for your audience. How many people you're talking to. Speaking of respect, If you don't respect your audience, of course, they're not going to listen to what you have to say. So that's an important element. You have to develop your speech. Of course, take time to do this. Don't do it quickly. Have a strong introduction and conclusion. It's like writing a paper, right? You want to start out strong, get into the body of your work, and then close on a positive note. Here's a little way to write your speech. Of course, like I said, a lot of people use note cards, and note cards are an effective way to speak in front of people, and I would recommend trying that if you feel that you need that in the future. So be specific, make sure you stay on task, don't ad-lib things, don't add things in that's not in your speech. Go with the flow, make sure your speech flows the way it should and have clarity overall. Bring your presentation to a deliberate conclusion and don't go over your time. I can't say this enough. Do not go over your time. Respect other people's time. Make sure that you finish on time, and this needs to be adhered to because it really annoys people in the long run and you lose effectiveness. When you're talking about treatment, of course, this would be mostly medical, right? So, give an impression of the topic, not just statistics, use illustrations, and make sure you have human interest stories if you're talking about treatments. Humor makes people comfortable, right? But you don't want to tell a joke that makes people uncomfortable. So, find a good line that won't offend people, and then also make sure that you do everything you can to reference things in the way they should be in an appropriate manner. You want to rehearse. I can't say this enough. You want to make sure that you do the work behind the scenes to have an effective speech. And this is not like 10 to 15 minutes. For a speech that's going to go 30 minutes, you want to rehearse for 3 hours. For a speech that's going to go an hour, you want to rehearse for, up to 10 hours. So what I'm trying to say is multiply it by 10. Do everything that you can to make things effective. And just to note, actually 30 minutes, right? Multiply by 10 would be 300 minutes. So that would be 5 hours. So not just 3 hours. I've tried to take everything I could in regards to presenting and do it in the right fashion, but sometimes you can get off course. When you get off course in a presentation, of course, make sure that you jump back on to the reason why you're speaking and get back to the topic. And a lot of times this can be challenging, but make sure you take accurate notes that you can follow. And we already said that. Make sure you convey a professional image, right? You want to dress professionally. You don't want to be overbearing. Like, you don't want to show up in suit and tie if people are in, casual clothes. But make sure you dress to the occasion and be upfront and do what you can to make people feel comfortable. When you deliver your presentations, you want to do it in an effective way. Don't scream at people. Don't act like you're on a pulpit like this gentleman here. You want people to feel welcome. You want people to understand your topic in a positive way. If you're fielding questions right, I'm going to give you an example of a positive field of a question. So when someone asks you a question, the best thing to do is repeat the question back to them. And you do that for 2 reasons. First, to validate that you heard what they said. And second, so you can remember what the question is when you're answering it. Because a lot of times people can get a little overwhelmed if a question comes through and they potentially don't know what it means, or if it's a long question. If you repeat it back, it's usually easier for you to answer that question for people. Visual aids are good. Please don't create a PowerPoint that is excessive in its wording. It's one negative thing that people do, read off their PowerPoint. Your PowerPoint is a visual aid. It's not meant to be a note card for you to follow. Of course, YouTube has it all, and I'm not going to go through the rest of the slides, but YouTube has everything. You can find anything on YouTube in regards to public speaking, how to be an effective speaker, an effective presentation versus a bad presentation. Everything's in there. So take time to review that this week in this module and review the material that I posted. And if you have any questions, of course, reach out to me. I'm happy to help. But overall, if you do these things that's in this PowerPoint, you'll have an effective public speaking routine and you'll do well and your audience will enjoy. Thanks for everything that you're doing. Reach out if you have any questions. I appreciate all your hard work.